The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of this protracted experience of death. I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation forever. What's happening, Benton here? I-20 westbound in West Texas, the Permian Basin. Drove past, excuse me, pardon me, drove past some man camps. I don't know too much about man camps, but that's what they're called. And, the oil fields, right? If anybody's ever heard anything about the oil fields, I was reminded of Millennial Steam talking about the job market and economics. And by the way, who gives a fuck? And I don't mean Millennial Steam's channel. I just mean, proverbially, perhaps. Who gives a economy, job market, national debt, immigrant? Who cares? But anyway, and the idea of a living wage and you will own nothing and you will be happy and all of this stuff. And it's like, well, I guess anybody that can hack it, you go out to the Midland, Texas area, and maybe live in a fifth wheel or a travel trailer, or who even knows what it costs to stay in one of them man camps. Some of them was just like individual, metal, containers, the ones that go on the ships with like a window and a door cut in it or whatever. I mean, they didn't look shabby. They were right off the interstate. Hell, those are probably $1,500 a month. Who knows? But then again, you're working 150 hours a week, so you're just going there to crash out and sleep, and maybe go to Walmart and then go back to work. Right? If that. Just work. Hey, who needs rent? Just work. Work the whole time. Right? Imagine if the government didn't mandate that truck drivers take 10 hours off. Shit. My head's pounding, man. I don't know what went wrong here, but could be the caffeine addiction. I haven't had much caffeine yet. Some tension in the old shoulders, too. I might blame the magnesium. I've started taking magnesium again recently. Maybe that's my body calling out for the magnesium. I don't know. Hard to say. We'll just suffer through it, the royal we. What's that? Some oil rig looking type stuff. I don't know much about it. Man, I saw a bunch of big rigs crash yesterday. High speed crashes on the interstate. One truck accidents in the median. There's like five of them, I want to say. And then, of course, a few trucks, a smattering of trucks that probably are just mechanically unsound. And then as they come up from Laredo or wherever, even the 10 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever takes them out of commission. Too much water in the fuel system, that shit freezes. Airlines is a big thing. If the air dryer on the 18-wheeler stops. Once it stops working, you get water all in the air system. That starts freezing. I seen a foreigner just probably froze up, but whatever it was broke down just right there in the right lane of the interstate. I'm like, buddy, you couldn't even make it to the shoulder? Like, what is this? He didn't even try to steer to the shoulder. He was just facing. Maybe he thought he was still moving. I don't know. We don't. It's like we weed the white boys out of society that act that way, right? They're in the penitentiary by the time they get to truck driving age. But import them from all over the world and throw them into various industries in the U.S. Why not? But yeah, I think what happened is you had too much. There was too much interstate with too many people going slow in the right lane. But meanwhile, if the right lane's clear and dry and people are going slow because it's winter weather, I mean, you can't really blame them. But and then some truck decides they're going to keep it moving and pass, and they get on that. The left lane is a sheet of ice and snow, and they get on that, and they start slipping, and they don't know what to do to fix it. So I've seen about five of them wrapped up, fish-tailed, wrapped up in whatever that fencing is, between the interstates. Oh, we're sliding right now, matter of fact. Freezing fog in the forecast. So that's one thing about the road being clear. 23 degrees on the dashboard. There's no guarantee that ain't icy. So we'll go ahead and slow it down. So this is where human instinct is bad for driving. Human instinct is to immediately start applying the brakes. But the moment anything occurs that causes some sort of emotional reaction in the driver, the most common reaction is immediate braking. Well, it's like, well, why are we braking? So upon detecting loss of traction, we cancel the cruise control. Now, some would say, why do you have the cruise control engaged? Well, because I'm hyper vigilant, I have good reflexes, and I know what I'm doing. But then so what that does is no more acceleration. We take our feet off the pedals entirely, and we don't do any steering unless we have to. Now, if the tractor needs to maneuver in conjunction with the trailer for emergence, such as when I thought I was going to pass a couple of times and did pass, but when I ended up on the sheet of ice and snow and started slipping and sliding towards the median, what did I do? All of the above, but then what is the solution that these fellas didn't know how to apply? Well, you got to counter steer and you got to floor that bitch. You got to use them drive tires and you got to power out of it, buddy. You got to use that 500 horsepower. And hopefully by then you've slowed down to at least 50 or so. And so now you just stomp it. And hopefully your trailer don't hit whoever you're trying to pass. Oh, yeah, we're sliding again. Headed to El Paso. We might take a little while to get there. I don't know. Is the way station closed? I didn't realize the past one, so I guess we'll call it closed. I didn't even see a way station. I don't think it is a way station. Either way, so that happened a couple of times. Scares the shit out of whoever's around. Who invariably they're not really going fast. They've just sped up. You know, for some reason they like the idea of being in my way. So then they realize that maybe they ought to just let me pass them and continue with my life. But eventually I got the message and slowed down. But the roads are clear now, which is kind of worse in a way because, you know, when you got the ice and snow on the road, it's a little different than most of this shit's dry, but then some of it's slick. And if you get into actual freezing fog, I think that's pretty much good luck with that. I saw a horrible, just insane pile up in Fort Worth, I think it was, on, you know, I saw a video of just like vehicle after vehicle after vehicle crashing. And it's like, you know, I don't think there was anything in the forecast necessarily. Like, people are just driving to work. It's like, oh, freezing fog. What the fuck is that? You know, now most of them were going way too fucking fast and following too close, but they do that anyway. So that's how all those bozos most likely ended up. And one of them he managed to really fuck up and wrapped all around one of these poles, one of these light poles. He wrapped the big tall light pole around his truck. That was pretty impressive. And then of course I guess aluminum poles driven into the ground, you know, with the braided cabling that tears the truck all up. But yeah, that's most likely their problem. They didn't understand the dynamics of. And if you once you start putting the brakes on, you're just whatever speed you were going, whatever speed the driver's going. So let's just say they're going 75, and the shit goes wrong. If their first thing they do is hit the brakes, that's a guaranteed. They're just going to keep whatever. If they're sliding towards the median, that's just the 100% guarantee of going into the median. Doesn't matter how they're turning the wheels. As soon as they stomp that brake, it's over. And even if they stomp it and get off of it, doesn't matter. It's over. So some of it's just not. It's a lot of it's knowing what never to do in what situation. Never, ever, 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 ever put that brake on without a good goddamn specific reason. I'll admit it, I drove fairly aggressively. Because I figured out I had just enough time to make I made 2 deliveries yesterday, and I didn't give a fuck about making the second one yesterday, but it made it to where I could drive early in the morning, these 4 hours to El Paso. Otherwise, I would have had to wait until later in the day to get started. So it was in my best interest. 18 now on the dash, but I think at least where I'm at, most of the real crazy cold weather's over with. I think the coldest I saw this time where I was about negative 18 truck temp anyway, dashboard truck temperature. So we've survived so far. 0 listening. Well, fuck you. I guess they're not tuned in for the hot trucker talk. Well, it's my party, and I'll yap about truck driving if I want to. Oh shit! Now we've got egg drink all over us because somehow we've managed to. Oh, I've already destroyed the Walmart $16 insulated bottle. Oh, it's the little gasket came out. I see. I think what happened was that I put boiling water in it and overwhelmed that seal, and now it's just fucked. You know the way these are manufactured, it's just it'll just probably never go back to. It'll never be right again. Maybe we'll see. So now that's all over me. Awesome. Mm. So I guess just pay $60 for the Yeti or whatever and be done with it, right? Is that the solution? I had some thoughts about the getting into it with the general public yesterday at Walmart in Oklahoma City, outskirts of Oklahoma City. And, when I thought about it, I had ideas. I was thinking about the idea of the quickening spirit and no weapon formed shall prosper. And certainly the weapon that attempted to form did not prosper. But it's this idea of, you know, something about don't argue with a dumb person. They'll bring you down to their level and beat you with experience or whatever. So the one thing about rising above and vibrating higher is, you know, to even sort of bring myself down to their level. And then, yeah, to rise above that, but it's still, and it's not an overall lessening of what I am. But, we see the mechanism that a lot of these spiritual weapons and spiritual attacks, it's influencing and sort of trolling and, picking at and alienating and all of these, psychological warfare against an individual so that, they will performatively lower themselves lower than just what would be their just next, base state, whatever level of righteousness or, calm, placid, right? To influence them to behave and perform in ways, to be lesser than they otherwise would be. And I did not see what the billboard was, but you got out here in certain areas of the country, a lot of the advertising, it really starts skewing, conservative signaling. The lawyer, the injury lawyer billboards, you can tell they're more white, male, strong, big brother, right? Big brother kind of, a certain type of face, a certain, strong shoulder and, certain almost making a fist. And so I didn't see completely, but the picture was like a young blonde girl, white, a blonde haired white girl. And she's facing she's facing forward at the camera, but still like not the angles, a specific angle on her face. And I don't know the age, but preteen most likely. And I only caught a glimpse of this out of the corner of my eye as I was passing it. And so what looked to be what I would presume is her family, and it's the heads of the family around her, encircling her, and they're all kissing her. So like grandma's kissing her on one cheek, and I don't know if it's grandpa. I couldn't see the whole thing, but it's reminding me like the structure of the way the photograph was structured. It just, you could tell there was undertones and subtext of something pornographic, fallen and wicked. And now, of course, the realm will accuse and attack and gaslight and say, well, no, Benton, that's because your mind's in the gutter. It's like, well, no, my mind isn't, and it wasn't. However, in the past, at lower levels of, more closely identified with this dead flesh and the pleasures, the so-called pleasures therein, I've seen a great deal of this sort of material, even going back to the 80s, and, well, 70s, really, because some of that would have been dated by the time I got to see it. But, early 80s. Got to see it, was exposed to it. And again, all of these things and the desolation, right? And that's the title of the stream. And a lot of times I don't even really know why I'm titling these things in a certain type of way, but, the void, the emptiness. So it's the lack of what's wholesome. That's what this realm is. What is considered wholesome, it's not a choice. It's not, oh, well, the leadership and families and humans, human nature, coalesced in the past and, created morality. I think that's sort of maybe a lot of people, whether they consciously know it or not, that's kind of what they think it is. But the realm is the lack of all of this. This world is the lack of those morals. If you start with a concept of morality and then you remove that concept, that's this world. So part of the inversion is the human or the spirit or the being, through the five senses, through indoctrination, through point of view, through the dead flesh, and within the dead flesh, is viewing, this world, society, and again, birthed into something, even though that's not even the proper, it's more of an insertion than a birth, but inserted into, a circus, right? In this crazy world of death, game of lies. And, because it's all seemingly happening, well, that seemingly creates a consensus. Well, it must be in some ways proper, which, well, that's not how logic works, because all of this seems to be happening, that doesn't then give it validity. Why? Because so many individuals are mind controlled and tricked and trapped into going along with a world of death and a game in these games of lies. Right? Employment's a lie. Education is a lie. Money is a lie. Your investments in retirement are lies. Your driver's license is a lie. The government is a lie. There's nothing that traces its origins to this place that's not a lie. The flesh lies. Your parents lied to you from day one. They were lied to by their parents from day one. Virtually nobody brings a new being here as a child and just leaves them alone to develop. Now, it happens. I've met a few of these folks in my travels. It does happen, believe it or not. And then immediately people start freaking out and, oh, what about this? What about that? You got to teach them this. You got to protect them from that. It's a big, bad world, blah, 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 blah. Well, what I'm saying is, why assume that your lying intervention, and I don't mean you, the listener, so my apologies. Why does the general public assume that their lying interventions, that's better than just leaving the child the fuck alone and then maybe waiting until they seek some guidance? Right. And then what? And then part of that is, well, a human, when asked a question, they're going to answer the fucking question. What if the answer is, I don't know? You know, sometimes when forced to ask a service worker or somebody some information, I tell them, and listen, I don't know is an answer. Like, if you don't know, just tell me you don't fucking know. I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to get you in trouble with your boss. You're not going to lose your job. But don't just give me a fucking answer because you can't say, I don't know. If you don't know, you don't fucking know. And I don't care. It's not a loss of face. You don't need to be embarrassed. Right? I had to find out if they had the anti-gel at this service area, which is it's not really a Love's, but Love's has figured out how to, get the fuel contract for some of these service areas on turnpikes. So they got just the absolute minimum amount of truck, things that a truck needs. So they got the big bottle of anti-gel, but not the little bottle. Well, I need the little bottle. So all I want, one piece of information and one piece only. And if I can't get a yes, I don't know. I don't want to, I'll go check. I don't want to, I want to know a yes or an I don't know, because I'm leaving. If you ain't got it and I can't purchase it in the next 60 seconds, I'm fucking leaving. I'm not angry. I'm not emailing corporate. Nobody's in trouble. I'm not going to talk to anybody's boss. I'm not going to have a disapproving look. I want to fucking leave in the next 120 seconds with or without this goddamn anti-gel. That's all I care. I don't care about anything. I don't care about my feelings. I don't care about how much it costs. I don't care about, well, maybe, this is why we have the big bottle and not don't care. Don't care. Not interested. So I'm already framing the question. I hold up the big bottle. I say, all I want to know, yes or no, do you have this same exact thing in the little bottle? And she pauses. No, ... Now emotional labor, because she's feeling some type of way empathetically based on how she thinks I feel. Well, I don't feel none of that. So when she gets to the ... I'm like, I don't need my emotions managed. I just need the information. Thank you for the info. And I leave, because that's the end of it. Right. And I don't even know how we got to this place in society where we're managing each other's emotions. Right. It's bizarre. And it is ultimately narcissistic, which I don't use that term that often, but, or it's even worse. Oh, I'm an empath. Oh, well, tell me you're a narcissist without telling me you're a narcissist, because it's the same fucking thing. Anybody who thinks they're an empath, that's a motherfucking narcissist. Guess who's never, ever thought he was empathic? Mr. Benton. Now, yeah, I'm able to pick up on other people's moods and emotions at times, sure. Now, this idea that I somehow care about that more than my own. Well, that's bullshit. No, I don't. Now, if I'm what I'm trying to get out, what I'm trying to manipulatively get out of a situation, I might see what I mean. Like it's I might need to make the other person. I'm incentivized to have the other person think we're bonding. We're not bonding. I can't bond with that person in the moment over a shared emotional experience around I I'm requesting a bottle of anti-gel that's not available. Oh my God, what do we do now? I don't know, lady. Probably if it was critical, I'd have bought two last time I stopped and they had it. Right? I mean, because that's logic and that's problem solving. It's like my emotions are, I don't involve my logic. I don't involve my emotions for the most part in my logic and my problem solving. Those are two separate processes. And I'm not explaining this to her, but I'm not operating based on I'm operating based on it's 50-50. I might as well go ahead and put in one last bottle of anti-gel. In fact, now that I think about it, I forgot that I've still got half a bottle in the truck. I could have poured a quarter bottle in each tank. I didn't even think about that. It just totally slipped my mind. But I knew on some level that the only way it was even going to matter would be if, for some insane reason, this particular fuel I was getting in Kansas, if it somehow wasn't the winter blend, which is basically impossible. It's the only way it would have mattered. Right. And from what I've seen, if all the fuel in the truck is if it's all the proper winter blend, the anti-gel doesn't do anything anyway. That they put stuff in the winter blend that will function as an anti-gel, so it doesn't even matter. It's just that once you get 75% summer, regular old summer blend, and then you only have 25% winter blend, well, that's not enough. Now the truck might freeze. And the trucker, especially when you're bringing foreigners over and you're just taking people who don't know a damn thing about trucks and putting them in trucks for these mega carriers, they don't fucking know. I didn't know until they told me. It was like, okay, that makes sense. I understand. There's a summer blend, a winter blend, and then there's additives. Okay, it makes total sense. I get it. If I fuel in Laredo and it hasn't been cold yet, and now it's -18, and it's just regular old summer fuel, yeah, there's going to be water in the fuel, and unless everything's perfectly operating with the fuel system, it's going to fucking freeze up. Yeah, okay, I get it. Makes total sense. And the actual diesel fuel apparently the viscosity changes and it starts to gel up. Apparently. Although I'm not a scientist, I'm not I'm not in petroleum. I'm not a petroleum engineer. And then it was interesting because walking in there, I walked in the front door and see, this is corporate. It's Love's. It's corporate. So in the 90s, when I worked at Blockbuster Video, corporate, they made us greet everybody that walked in the door. And they even wanted you, if you were like doing something on the other side of the store and you heard that door open, they wanted you calling out hello or a greeting. And now what is that? Well, because I was curious and researched it, and because I'm well read, well, these business types and these MBAs figured out that people shoplift less if their experience has been humanized, if they've been greeted. They're less likely to impulsively steal shit. Now, some people are just going to steal shit no matter what. But some of the people who might steal when they feel like they can get away with it, if they've done studies and if a human being greets them. Now, I would say you don't get the full effect of that unless I need to be looking at the person. They need to be looking at me. So I walk in and it's her back's turned to me. I walk past her and she greets my back. And because I'm socialized and have social skills, now I turn around and, just sort of wave at her comically. And she almost got a lecture over that. I almost came out of the bathroom and was like, hey, look at it from my perspective. I'd rather just not have the greeting. But if you insist on the greeting, let's not do it to my backside, because then I'm going to feel compelled to do the work and turn all the way around when you could have turned your happy ass around when you heard me come in the door. You had the option of turning your body to face me, but what did she do? As a human being, she waits till it suits her, and then later on, if her supervisor starts busting her chops, oh no, I greeted that guy. No, you greeted my backside after I walked past you. That's not really a greeting. In fact, that would be more of a, we'll see you later. Because for all she knows, there's a service area. It's not just Love's. Like, I could just be walking in to try to buy, something to eat. I could be going for, there's other stores beyond, right? In fact, I would say she didn't greet me at all. I could have just kept going, and I could have went out another different door. That could have been the end of our interaction. We could have never interacted. Well, what if I'm old? What if I didn't hear her? See, and which is fine. I mean, I don't mind living in a world where she don't give a fuck about her job, and I don't give a fuck about being greeted. So now, when I go to the counter to pay my money, that's a little different. I'm supposed to be greeted, but them days are over, as we know, and that's all right. Further decline of society. This is how you know society ain't shit, because I grew up in the time of the customer's always right, and if I went to a store a couple times in a row and they didn't greet me, and I'm a valued customer, I could say, hey, I could talk to the manager, who I probably know personally to some degree. And it's like, yo, and they might even be like, hey, what do you think of the new person? Well, I've 3 times in a row, no greeting, no thank you. Right. And when you talk about job markets and you talk about, oh, the TikTok thinks this is the worst job market of all time. No, it's not. 1983 was. In our lifetimes, it was 1983. So jobs were so hard to come by. It's like, hey, maybe there's 10 other people that want that job. Maybe every time that manager goes out into town, somebody's like, hey, you hiring? What about that new person? How are they working out? Maybe, I can come down there. But that other person probably has a full-time job, and they're looking for a part-time job. When I grew up, this was all normal. The idea of it being hard to get a job was normal. Right. And then by the time I, worked for my father for a couple of years because he made me, and which is, it's a good thing. I didn't want to, I didn't like it, of course. It's his culturally, it was his job to turn me into a man, and that's part of it. Is here's your push broom, you autistic bozo, but we don't know what autism is. And if y'all could have seen me push brooming my dad's concrete, the parking lot of my dad's convenience store back, you took one look at that and said, oh, this motherfucker's autistic as hell. Because nobody showed me how to do it. Nobody trained me how to do it. I did it the way that, like, okay, well, this makes sense to me. And looking back on it, autistic as fuck. I was out there making straight motherfucking lines and shit. Like pushing all the dirt from the very top to the very bottom, like in one line. And then completely 100% cleaning that section before moving on to the next. This is fucking bananas looking back on it. I can only imagine what the people around me thought of this. Thankfully, nobody had any fucking idea what autism was, so I didn't have to worry about being diagnosed. But so that was nice. And I'm convinced half these autistic people just leave them the fuck alone and they'll figure it the fuck out. But medical coding and billing, there's doctors out there that they might want to add a new wing onto their mansion eventually, right? Somebody's got to pay for that. Insurance companies you got to have record profits for insurance companies. And why am I able to backwards engineer the so-called economic and financial systems? So when you look at, well, what's going on with healthcare in America? It's corporations and insurance companies run it, and they can, all of that conspires with the government, and competition is a sin. So the insurance companies, the medical corporations, and the government, they chop up the people's money, and the people pay in, and then the medical corporation, the insurance corporation, and the government corporation divvies up the people's money. So ultimately, when we talk about corporations, government, banking, finance, insurance, what we're talking about is corporate interests that the people elect or select or at least agree to or allow to have access to resources and to divide up the resources. And so the corporations, the insurance corporation and the medical corporation, they operate on a never-ending series of record profits model because it's tied to what? Now, not always, but once they get to the big boy level, that's all public. It's all publicly traded stock. Right. Now, I don't know much about insurance companies, so I really don't know there, but maybe that's all private. Maybe it's private, public, and then quasi, and then a combination of both when you get into the government. I really don't know. So, please do your own research as always. Don't take my word for it, but so the, United Healthcare, shout out to Luigi. Well, just Google information about their stock history and their earnings. And what you're going to see is a mostly unbroken string of record profit, record earnings, record profit, record stock price. And so that's the determining factor. That we start from there. So let's create from scratch a medical system and a corporate system and an insurance system and a government. And from day one, the large corporation, whether it's even here or not, everything will be designed and structured based on, at some point, there will be a stock market and there will be a few very large corporations that control the entire, with some exceptions, the entire medical industry in America. And those corporations are run on the principle of record earnings, record profits, all-time high stock price, more often than not. So if you don't believe me, Google the history of United Healthcare. And I haven't looked it up, but I'd bet you money that's what you're going to see. Now, again, with some exceptions, you're mostly going to see records exceeding projected earnings. Because to project the earnings and to merely meet the earnings, that can't be record earnings. Record earnings is we beat the number. We beat the street. We beat Wall Street. See? So that's all. It's all backwards engineered from that starting point. because the only reason, in my view, to read that Robert Kiyosaki, just like I learned something from a Deepak Chopra book, something critical, I learned something crucial from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich people always, 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 always pay themselves first. Every dollar they touch, the first thing they do is they set aside a portion and they keep that portion. Always. Even if it's Dave Ramsey and he's in financial trouble on his business, doesn't matter. $1 comes into his business, he keeps a portion of it, no matter what happens. If one of his vendors don't get paid on time, he keeps a portion of every dollar that flows into his business, 100% of the time, because he's rich. Every dollar that he earns as income, he keeps a portion of it. If his mortgage doesn't get paid, he keeps a portion of every dollar. If his car payment is late, he keeps a portion of every dollar. Poor people don't. Now, you can then say, well, they're poor because of their behavior. Well, I didn't say that. Because wealth is something that mostly people are born into because it's mostly connected to bloodlines. Mostly. And in fact, in all of human history, nobody has ever hard worked themselves into wealth. It's not possible. It cannot be done. You can't take the most intelligent, hardworking, industrious 15-year-old when their balls drop and the testosterone kicks in and say, off you go and bust your ass and get wealthy. That won't do it. Sorry, that will not guarantee you a wealthy person. And that will not create a wealthy person until other factors. So probably some wealthy people who pay themselves first, no matter what, they probably got to be, now it's going to start sounding like the mafia. They probably need to, whoever thinks they're going to be wealthy, they probably need to pay a wealthy person before they pay themselves. Right? Find a mafia, break them off 25% of whatever the person's earning, and hope to get in their good graces. To eventually, when the wealthy person has an opportunity and they need something. Oh, well, they need somebody to start a certain type of business. Now they remember the person that's been paying them on the reg. And maybe they'll say, hey, I got this opportunity. But really, it's not an opportunity. They need somebody to do a thing, and they can't be bothered, or they don't give a fuck enough to do it themselves. And it ain't good enough for their family. Because remember, if this was a good fucking deal without a high level of risk, why isn't their family going into it? So number one, the person who wants to get wealthy, they're taking on a bunch of risk. Number two, it's probably the American dream, which is to do what? More for less. See, that their family is not engaged in performing the American dream, their wealthy bloodline family. So if it's too much work for not enough reward and it's risky, they're not touching it. What would be the point of being wealthy if that's what they needed to do and they're already wealthy? And I mean actual wealth. Actual wealth is Nick Reiner. See, Nick Reiner was born into actual wealth. Let's just assume that he didn't have whatever psychological problems he had. Meanwhile, what do you think causes psychological problems? Oh, it's a chemical imbalance. Oh, it's genetic. No, it's the way it was what he was born into gave him mental problems for the most part. Now, are there genetic factors that may lie dormant and then the upbringing, potentially creates certain personality and other, disorders? Sure. And then once you get into a person who will just abuse any and all drugs, and you send that person to a series of rehab starting at age 14, where they can, what do you think that is? What do you think it is to send a 14-year-old boy to a series of rehabs? Well, he has a he has a doctorate in how to get high because somebody mastered a various class of drugs, and then they went to rehab at age 30, and now Rob Reiner sent his 14-year-old. And then what do you think the 30-year-old's favorite topic is? It's whatever class of drugs he's an expert in, or she. Oh, here's a 14-year-old who'll do any drug under any circumstances. Oh, okay, well, I guess we're relapsing. Next thing you know, they're homeless on the streets of Maine or wherever. They send him to rehab, and they're, shooting up Wellbutrin or, things that shouldn't even be injected, right? Because some expert knows how to do it without just dying. Because, Nick Reiner probably understands on some level he can't just start willy-nilly cooking shit up and inject it into his veins. He might die. Right? He needs somebody to teach him. Well, so by the time you get a 35-year-old Nick Reiner, you got somebody who's now an expert in pretty much how to do any drug. He knows how to do anything. You just pick something at random and toss it at him, and he looks at it, knows what it is, and knows immediately all the various ways to get high off of it, and what do all of those various ways feel like, and what do all of those various ways feel like in combination with other specific drugs. He's an expert. He's got that's what he knows. And so what does that do to the brain? What did that do to his developing brain? And so part of how Benton is sitting here talking to you is, I made it to age 25, other than getting drunk a few times, and put almost no drugs in my body. And when I say drugs, I'm including prescription drugs. And when did I smoke cannabis for the first time? I was older than 21, I know that, before I ever even tried cannabis. So by the time I became a heavy user, I was 25 years old. So I've, almost made it to age 25 without taking any fucking psychoactive substances. Right? Close enough. Right. And that's supposedly when the brain is mostly fully developed. Mostly. Supposedly. So they say. Are we boring or am I boring you? We got one person listening. At this point, I'm the one person. So really, I'm talking to me. Oh, two people. So YouTube heard me and said, well, we better at least double his audience from 1 to 2. Well, fuck you, YouTube. I'm just going to assume from now on I'm talking to me. There is no, there is. There's an audience of 1, and it's me. It's a Scagnetti on Scagnetti. Shout out to Natural Born Killers. No longer my favorite film. It's now Schenectady, New York with, Small Hat, Charlie Kaufman flick, written and directed. Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind. That was also him, although he did not direct that one. He only wrote it. Charlie Kaufman. And also Being John Malkovich, I think. And maybe, I don't know if he wrote The Truman Show or not. Maybe not. Not sure. Don't know. Yeah, Schenectady, New York. But yeah, Scagnetti on Scagnetti. If anybody gets that Natural Born Killers reference. Yeah, I'm just me talking to me. If we've got voyeurs, if we got people who like to voyeuristically listen in, then that's fine. So you got your Nick Reiners born into actual wealth. And what I mean by that is, if Nick Reiner never works a job, never learns how to do anything useful, his lifestyle continues. His fridge is full of food. He lives indoors. He drives a car if he wants to, or he Ubers around Los Angeles, or his friends pick him up, right? And he gets $10,000 a month. And middle American people scratch their heads and say, oh, he's mollycoddled. Why are you giving somebody without a job $10,000 a month? Oh, you don't get it. That's his birthright. His birthright is a certain amount of money that he just gets. It's pocket money. When somebody's bloodline has served Moloch and Moloch's machine and abject evil in this world of death and game of lies, and it brings a new, portals a new soul to that hell, that person's birthright is they have access to resources. Because remember, this is a world based on a resource vacuum. This world contains no substance, no value, or possibility of abundance whatsoever. The idea that this is an abundant world, no, it's not. This is a world of lack of abundance. What I am is the value. What I am is substance. What I am is the continuous renewing of the spirit, right? The source of all power, the source of all life. Some version of a perpetual motion, or an inexhaustible energy supply that's always growing and expanding and can never had a beginning and will never have an end, will never know death, will never know exhaustion, can't be drained, right? That's what I am. This world is the antithesis of what I am. This is a world of, you ain't got none of that, partner. Again, in the world, not of the world. That's the spirit of what I am. I didn't start with the spirit of this world, and I need to be taught by a religion to be not of this world. That's a violation. What I am is not of this world. What I am is the way, what I am is the truth, what I am is the life. Well, this world knows nothing of truth. It knows nothing of the way, and it knows nothing of life. It knows death. It knows lies. And it knows lies based on lack of truth. And I mean complete, absolute lack of truth. You look at the Incredible Hulk and think, well, here's somebody who doesn't know the first thing about anger. Oh, no. Dr. Banner knows more about anger than anybody. He's the world's foremost expert in anger. What are you talking about? That's how that works. It's a matter of perspective. I'm still here. Got to rinse out my mouth real quick. Like. So contractually, somewhere behind the scenes involving the evil and the wickedness and the sorcery and the spell casting and all of this. Nick Reiner was born into something. So he's born into, adjusted for inflation, 10K a month. Which, by the way, if you're just in a wealthy family in Los Angeles, bebopping around, going here and there and spending money, not a lot of money. It's enough. It's enough to do whatever he wants to do on a day in and day out basis. $2,500 a week. He can go around LA just doing whatever he's going to do. Not a lot of money, folks. It's not. Now, if he went and hung out in the middle of part of America, it's a fucking lot of money. And so middle America doesn't understand the ruling class, because make no mistake, Nick Reiner is of the ruling class, and it has nothing to do with a meritocracy. It has nothing to do with he had to show an aptitude. No, he's the ruling class is the ruling class regardless. There is no, they've got to see, the lie of the system is that they have to do a good enough job so that the masses don't revolt and French Revolution them. The French Revolution's a lie. Now, I'm not saying the French Revolution didn't happen. The idea of the French Revolution is a lie that serves the system, because why did I need to go to school and be taught about the French Revolution at a young age? It's to mind control me into thinking, oh, well, I don't need to worry, because if the government really gets out of control and starts taking advantage and taking liberties, the people will chop off the heads of the ruling class. No, they won't. And even if they did in France, was that the actual ruling class, or was that people that the actual ruling class used or were using, like the ambitious people in the example of the young man who might understand once he starts making a decent amount of money, he's going to have to network with some actual wealthy people, and he probably needs to start paying them money. And what does that money represent? To the rich person, it represents, well, this is somebody who actually wants to be my friend and is not going to try to get things from me. Meaning, well, they're going to wait around and hope that I just throw them a bone, which is how business gets done. That's not, now in middle America, that's a kiss up. Oh, he's a brown noser. He kisses ass. Motherfucker, what do you think rich people do? You think somebody worth 100 million don't kiss Rob Walton's ass? You crazy? Now they have, very sophisticated, charming, ways of doing it, but it's flattery nonetheless. Because anytime Rob Walton wants to, he can say, oh, hey, man, I need a certain type of product, or, we got this product in our stores and we ain't happy with this vendor, and, we're going to give somebody a shot. And so, why don't you go ahead and send over a proposal, and, I'll have my people give you the parameters, and whoever that is worth 100 million, they probably already have that. See, they probably know they got to be ready if and when Rob Walton picks up the phone, and, and then it's 30 seconds, it's 60 seconds, or they, Rob Walton says, well, he has his people invite this person to a party, and Rob Walton walks over, and it's all social networking. And this person, the 100 millionaire, knows at this party, he knows how to behave, or she. And It's all very formal. And he's going to, at some point, have 90 seconds. He's going to be standing in front of Rob Walton. And Rob Walton, his people have prepared they prepared an itinerary. And he knows, and probably one of his fucking handlers or his assistants is going to make the introduction so that Rob Walton doesn't have to potentially be embarrassed by not remembering exactly who this motherfucker is. Right? Rob, you remember such and such. Oh, yeah. Hey, we were talking about you the other, and Rob Walton grew up in Arkansas and Oklahoma. Oh, hey, so in his folksy, whatever that is, Sam Walton's son, I believe, or Bud Walton's one of them sons. Hey, we were talking about you the other day, and just gives them the very bare bones, and the 100 millionaire knows exactly how to respond, and all the mechanisms are in place. And Rob Walton is like, it's great to see you again. And, we'll have to get together this summer on the boat or whatever. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. And the minute that bozo doesn't know the rules and gets snubbed thinks, oh, I got snubbed over the summer, and makes the instant he diverts from protocol or decorum, it's just his number gets lost, and now he's persona non grata. So it's the people who know how to play those games and who are willing to take the crumbs. And now here's the thing is, Dave Ramsey's talked about that his products had a chance to get into one of these big box retailers, but they got all the way to signing the contract. But the big box retailer says, well, we're not going to take the risk. So if this don't work out, we're not reimbursing you for the products you put in our stores, meaning we're going to ship this back to your warehouse and we're not paying for any of it. And then Dave Ramsey's looking at this going, well, I'm not writing a check for $10 million. I'm not taking a $10 million L. See, whoever gets that opportunity is willing to take a $1 million L or a $10 million L. That's the risk taking. And that's, hey man, you're worth 100 million and you're just going to have to get by with 90% of your fortune is left because we gave you a shot in the super center and it didn't work out. And we don't want to hear about it if we invite you, because we might invite you to another function and you might get another opportunity to potentially set 10 million on fire. See, that's how wealth operates. And you're going to be thankful or you're going to fuck off. And so Dave Ramsey knew that he's not thankful and he fucked off, and it's fine because, he's all right either way. Now, was Dave Ramsey born into actual wealth? Well, I believe he was. And then probably Dave Ramsey just enjoys building wealth, so that's what he does. There's the idea that somebody is self-made through the sweat of their brow is bullshit. No, they're not. Some people are born into that life and they have a personality and they have a drive and they enjoy building wealth. So that's what they do. Doesn't mean they weren't born into wealth. Doesn't mean that they earned it through the sweat of their brow. No, they didn't. No, they did not. And the fact is, conservatives don't like it. So how it sounds when Obama said, if you have a successful business, you didn't do that. Now, the problem is if he's talking about somebody that you may think is successful in middle America who's a contractor, well, he don't mean them. He means somebody who's at a certain level of corporate and who's risen to a certain type of level. And what he means is you didn't do that through the sweat of your brow. And he's right. No, because they're wealthy and nobody hard worked themselves into wealth because it's not possible and it's never happened and it never will. You can't just start out day one busting your motherfucking ass all day, every day, and then be guaranteed wealth. It's never happened. And nobody in a vacuum apropos of nothing, has just worked and worked and worked and worked and eventually became wealthy. And wealth is defined as anytime they want to, they can say, fuck this, and just never work another day in their life and never think about it ever again. Because Nick Ryder was born into something where he never had to think about it. That's lazy. Nobody's as lazy as people born into actual wealth because they have the greatest opportunity to get really good at being lazy. See, you have a limited opportunity to get good at being lazy. And you can, now who's considered the laziest people is homeless, street level drug addicts. Oh, look at these lazy bums. What are you talking about? These are hardworking survivors on some level, whether you acknowledge it or not. Like they have to work hard every day or they die. Like, what are you talking about? They can't just be like, oh, well, fuck this. You know? But they're told, oh, you don't have things because you're not working because the system, this is a world of death and these are game of lies. And one of the biggest lies of all is if you don't work, you don't eat. Bullshit. A lot of motherfuckers are born into wealth and they have access to everything life has to offer, this so-called life, and they do nothing to earn it other than the blood that courses through their veins served evil and continues to serve evil. Their ancestors earned it. And a big part of being an American is the brainwashing around work ethic, right? And when you look at the idea of the enemy, and I'm old enough that it was the Cold War when I was a kid, the Ruskies, Red Dawn, fucking Rocky Four in the boxing gloves, you know, crashing into each other and exploding. USA versus USSR. And now what do we see? That some people would try to say, well, you're still young, Benton. It's like, well, I'm 50, and now it's America versus China. Right. And so China's known for what? 996. The workers work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. That's what America is now. My work day's 14 hours, unless it's longer, and sometimes it's shorter. I'd say on average, I don't know, 13 hours, 12 and a half to 13. And I live at my workplace, so, you know. So how many hours a week does the average American have directly working when you get into the gig economy, commuting, whatever time has to be spent in preparing to be ready to do the job, right? Working from home, working over the weekend, right? Returning emails from the cell phone in line at the Starbucks. So you're probably looking at 90 to 100 hours a week. Right. So what's 12 times 6? Is that 96? I don't know. I can't do that math. I can do that math in my head. 72. It's a base level of 72 hours. I'd say we're there. But when I first heard that term, it was associated with China, because part of the way the propaganda works in America is it functions at a covert level. But when we tell you about it, and we attach it to other countries. China 996, austerity Greece. And I know nobody has a memory. The general public doesn't have a memory, but that was one of the big themes of the 0809 financial crisis was, Greek austerity, because Greece was singled out as, look, the people have voted themselves all of these entitlements and retirement and this, laughably easy work week. And, they go on strike and they work 15 years and then they just kick back and relax. So now it's like, you need a European Central Bank bailout. Meanwhile, who was bailing out the European Central Bank? The Federal Reserve. So it's like, hey, the Bilderbergs or whoever, whatever we're calling that, the administrative layer of the ruling class, right? And then the people who are seeking to join that level. So now we're back to the French Revolution, and maybe that if heads actually rolled, maybe the actual ruling class said, okay, we got all these people champing at the bit, and it is champing, not chomping, champing at the bit. They want these high positions. So 2 to 5 years before the French Revolution, let's go ahead and move these people into those positions. And then 2 to 5 years later, off with their motherfucking heads. And that's the risk taking. They took that risk. The ruling class ain't taking that risk. Zero better. We're back to one, but what I like about the zero is I don't have to talk the whole time. Sometimes I like to sort of pause and just think and reflect and contemplate. But when there's a few listeners, there's always that pressure to keep talking. And increasingly people just don't have the attention span for the jumping topic to topic to topic to topic. And that's not a failure with me. That's a failure with the audience. Needs that agility of mind, right? They need the neuroplasticity. So when I'm the audience, I'm following along and I'm listening as I'm performing. Again, performer and audience contained within the same space, right? Worshipper and object of worship contained within the same space. The resurrection of the risen, ascended Christ within, which is the entire point of Christ, is to transcend and overcome the dead, wicked, evil, fallen flesh. That's the whole point. And if necessary, to travel the underworld and to come out the other end of, the mile-long sewer pipe of shit from Shawshank Redemption. And then Andy Dufresne, if you please, born again in some way, rejoicing to the heavens. And John Coffey is, oh, it's a different movie. Stephen King wrote them both, though. I actually put the Green Mile in there. I started thinking about Stephen King. But I don't know. It works. It works. I wouldn't mind. I got to say, at this point, I wouldn't mind taking a month off and moteling it up and streaming and making some content. Part of the issue there is how to get it. There's really no way to get an audience. And so a lot of what went on in the past with this channel, a lot of that, I don't know that the folks in the so-called truth community understood what I was doing, but a lot of that was I knew that there was an audience. And now some of that tied back to my own podcast, and some of that tied back to the pandemic. But as we see, and Chalk Body Outline gets a lot of credit for putting me on in certain ways, but at some point I got to take the ball and run with it. But the reality is it would be just me making content for me. And it's always been that on some level. It's never not been that. But especially through YouTube, you're looking at, the near impossibility of any appreciable audience. And that's even if I'm willing to go make the rounds in the panelverse and promote the fucking thing. And humor the live chat and, provide them with what they ultimately want, which is a chat room to edgelord it up in the chat. And then, to play the games of who's a moderator, who's not a moderator, and, all of those dynamics. The interplay between the streamer and the chatters. And then if you get live chats or super chats in the mix, that becomes kind of its own thing. There's an entertaining factor. And, I dropped $20 on Tarman yesterday, and people I don't think they're doing this to me anymore, but a couple of times people have been like, basically like, here's his Cash App, meaning, well, it's like, yeah, buddy, but if I want Tarman to have $20, you think I don't know to give him 35? I know to super chat 35 if I want him to keep 20 or whatever that ratio is, right? If I'm dropping 20 on him, I know I'm giving him $12.50 or 15 or whatever it is. I don't know what his tax situation is. None of my business, but yeah, I understand. I can Cash App the man. I'm willing to pay money I want to see my goddamn super chat. So when I dropped a 50 in a super sticker on Chalk Body Outline, I want people to see that I'm doing it. And I didn't really have anything to say, so I just did a super sticker. And, live streamers, they deserve it. You can say, oh, well, Tarman don't have a job and, maybe he's on, I don't know he's on disability. I have no idea. None of my business. Don't care. I enjoy his content, and it gets a little too sexual for me. And sometimes, and I just go listen to something else, and I come back later, or I don't. I don't complain like, hey, man, what's up with all of this? Because that's how I was at his age. So, bringing up sexual topics. Why am I going to be mad at him? But if he's putting his time into something, why wouldn't I let YouTube have some of my money? Am I hoarding money? I mean, what the hell? What am I going to do with it? I'm not spending my kids' college fund. I'm not spending my retirement. There is no retirement. Maybe if the government comes looking for their income taxes, I'll say, I gave it to Tarman. I guess you're going to have to go talk to him. I went crazy and dropped a series of $500 super chats on Tarman. I mean, and I'm not saying I am or I would or I have, but why not? Oh, well, YouTube gets support. Who cares? Corporations get a big chunk of all of your money. But I'm doing something wrong by letting YouTube have some of my money. Alphabet, Google, YouTube. But it's completely fine when I go give some of my money to Walmart. And some of this is having principles. You know, when I needed $40 and my fucking tightwad dad in some ways, I knew I could call in a favor, and I was like, hey man, I really need $40. And I never ask, and I wouldn't be asking unless it was real important. But I said, hey, you got to go to the post office and get a postal money order. I don't have any way to deal with anything else. And on some level, he ain't going to be told what to do. And he's got a little bit of his own oppositional defiance. So next thing you know, he said, I got a Wells Fargo money order. Will that work? And I said, I would pay $40 not to go into a Wells Fargo. And I'm in it. And I just went out. I figured another way to get $40, a less convenient, more difficult way. But I just said, fuck this, because I would pay $40 to not go into the Wells Fargo, because I will never forget the bailouts. Wells Fargo came hat in hand and said, we done fucked up. We need y'all to bail us out. Why would I reward that? Meanwhile, Pops can give $1.50 to the post office, and then I can walk into the post office and get $40 and not pay a motherfucking fee and not be harassed. And every time I go into Wells Fargo, they try to strong arm me into getting a checking account. And it turned out that years later, Wells Fargo had to pay a fine because their management was so up the ass of the people that work in the branches that the people that work in the branches fraudulently created millions of checking accounts. And they signed people up for checking accounts that wouldn't agree to it. Go look it up. Don't take my word for it. So I got some of that harassment. And some of the time, the only reason I was at Wells Fargo is because I worked day labor in Fort Collins or Boulder, Colorado, and through Labor Ready or whatever the fuck they have up there. People finders. I don't know what the fuck it is. Labor finders. Or in South Dakota or somewhere. And they paid me on a check. And I had to go to a motherfucking Wells Fargo because they have a machine in the labor finders, but it's out of order. They have a fucking machine that will cash the check for a fee. Or I could take my happy, and then people say, why don't you have a bank account? Because I remember 0809, motherfucker. And the Patriot Act says I can't have a checking account. Why, Benton? Because I did what they call account abuse. And Patriot Act created a database. And now there's most of y'all don't know this. I know this because I listen to Alex Jones every day for years and I researched it. When you go to get a checking account at a bank, they have to query a database to find out if you can have a checking account. And some of y'all, it's going to say, we can't give you a checking account. And I'm one of them people. Why? Because when I was compulsively gambling on Poker Stars and Full Tilt Poker, I figured out I could overdraw my U.S. bank by up to $500. And I gambled it away, and I'm not paying them. And when U.S. Bank called on the phone and they tried to think they were going to shame me, I said, listen, buddy, that's your fault. He said, what are you talking about? I said, not only am I not ashamed of owing this money, I said, that's U.S. Bank's fault. They let me overdraft $500 on purpose so that eventually they could sell the debt to you for pennies on the dollar. And I don't give a fuck about you getting paid. You can go fuck yourself. And I said, I'm not mad at you, but if they think they're getting their $500, they're insane. I will never pay that money. And he just laughed. I said, laugh all you want, buddy. You're wasting your time. You might as well move on to the next one. I don't own anything. You can't get blood out of a turnip. And I'm telling you, if I had $500, if I win the lottery and you're on the list of money that I owe, the fucking state will pay you out of my winnings. Other than that, you're out of luck, buddy. I don't own anything. I don't have any assets to seize. If my wages are garnished, I'm going to quit, right? Which was not entirely true, but it's mostly true. I can file bankruptcy. I'm never paying you under any circumstances. I wouldn't give, if we negotiated to $50 in cash, I'm not sending you $50. I'm not making payments. I knew what US Bank was doing. US Bank knew what they were doing. When I very first got a debit card with McElroy Bank in the 90s, they let me bounce a balance inquiry for 50 cents and then charge me $15 insufficient funds, and I marched my happy ass into the bank branch. And this was the old days of the customer's always right. And I said, here's my account information, and I don't know what this is, but I'm going to stand here while y'all go take care of this, and I don't ever want to see this ever again. And they said, yes, sir, you're absolutely right, and we do apologize. And she went in the back. It was like it never happened. And you know what happened in the future? It declined my motherfucking card. Because if I went into Walmart and tried to buy $100 worth of groceries and I had $1 in my account, or I had 25 cents in my account, it said declined. So if I had no money in my account and I went to their ATM machine and I don't know or care that they charged me 50 cents to check my balance, I ain't mad at nobody as long as they fix it. And now I know, okay, I better make sure I have at least 50 cents, because I could have parked my car and walked in and said for free, asked how much money's in my account. Or I could have called them on the phone. This is the old days. It's 95-ish, right? And so I noticed at a certain point, oh, it no longer declines my debit card. Now it lets me overdraft. I wonder why that's happening. Oh, they figured out if they let me overdraft, they can collect billions of dollars in fees. But I had a debit card since 1995, and I know that the system's in place. It can just decline the motherfucking transaction. US Bank didn't have to let me overdraft. And a motherfucking poker site, for fuck's sakes. You gonna tell me the system didn't know what it was doing? Because it knows some percentage of people are not going to pay. Some percentage of people will make it right. Then all of whatever doesn't get made right will get sold for pennies on the dollar to collection agencies who are willing to pay cash, and then they're going to go try to collect. And if this doesn't prove to you that the financial system is a lie, how can that be a profitable business? Because the money is for free, because it's our money, because we are the value. And I don't mean the people collectively. I mean, if what you are is what I am at the level of Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, then that's the value. Not the money, not this world, not the fucking African blood diamonds, not the oil out of the earth. None of that is the value, see? None of that. And, you know, I grew up, and before you could have a meal, somebody had to say grace and say the blessing and bless the food. And I don't know how many times it took me to finally realize, but blessing the food is the blessing, you fucking idiots. And I've told people that. No, it's not. No, it's. I said, what is wrong with you? The food is the blessing. Are you crazy? Now, it's not, but no, it's not. No, it's not. Well, then what is it if it needs to be blessed? Is it, I guess it's a curse then, right? I mean, what even is this? Either way, I win. Oh, but you think you're worshiping something outside of yourself by being thankful to that? Give us this day our daily bread. That's for beings who don't know what they are. Give us this day our daily bread. And that's when asked, hey, how do we pray? That's Jesus looking at these people who can't tell who can't tell their head from the hole in the ground and says, okay, here's how you pray. Give us this day our daily bread. Because he already knows we all are going to sit around the table and you're going to bless the food. Meanwhile, on some level, the food is the blessing. Or it's the blessing of what I am that will always be provided for, see. And it is the means of production. It is the means, see. So the idea of communism is the people or the worker owns the means of production. I am the means of production, motherfucker. What are you talking about? I am that source of all. See how it works? That's what I am. It's my core essence. Having this fallen, wicked, depraved experience. And the story of Christ, and if that was a blood sacrifice, it wasn't to offer up blood for the sins of humans and humanity and a world and the sins of the flesh. That's not what it is. That's a lie. That's not what it is. It's not that. It can't ever be that. Oh, blasphemy. Well, if it's blasphemy, thankfully, that's not the type of blasphemy that could cause everlasting damnation, according to the Christian's book. The Christian's book says there's only one unforgivable sin, and that's blasphemy in the Holy Spirit. Or to treat blessing as if it were cursed. So that is to be identified with that I am. That's when the I am treats the blessing of what it is as if that blessing were a curse. That's blasphemy in the Holy Spirit. And anything that ain't that is so-called forgivable. Based on the rules of your book, Christians. And I'm not saying Christians are listening or not listening. I'm addressing the Christians. And I'm addressing the type of Christian who the next thing you know is admitting to blaming God for something. Oh, God, why'd you do this to me? Did you talk to the criminal? Because God, if you want to tell me, air quotes, so-called man in the sky, Father God, divinely inspired a book called the Holy Bible in the King James Version in the English language floating out in space in the beginning was the Word. If you mean that, it's right there. You can take the Bible seriously based on its own motherfucking rules. I can logically explain why what I'm saying is correct. Now, it requires proper interpretation and discernment. It's right there in the book. Oh, that's blasphemy. Okay, great. It's not the type of blasphemy that I can't come back from. So I guess confess, repent, seek forgiveness, and forgiven like it never happened, as long as I'm truly repentant. What now, bitch? What now, bitch? You got other things to tell me? Oh, but running around blaming God, did you talk to the criminal? Meanwhile, y'all didn't read Job chapter 1. Have you considered my servant Job? Hey, Satan, what's happening, partner? Oh, you know me, just roaming to and fro, seeking whom I may devour. Have you considered my servant Job? He's right over there. Oh yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, you blessed him. You gave him everything. They love him everywhere he goes. He's well received. He's the apple of everybody's eye. Let me have a shot at him. He'll curse you to your face. Oh, really? Well, that's interesting. Okay. Deal. Just you can't physically do nothing to it. All right. I accept your terms. And here you go. It's right there in your book, Christians. So how you gonna resent? Now the Christian has become what the enemy said Job would become. So now the Christian is admitting, well, if God ever taps me, and I don't know, I mean air quote so-called God, this man in the sky Father God. I'm not introducing that concept. I'm using their concept. So now if put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. You got a bunch of Christians dribbling around basketballs. Put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. The moment coach puts them in, they're blaming God. And God's like, what are you talking about? Oh, your loved one died, and now you're asking me, why did I do this to your loved one? And did you talk to the criminal? Did you think for 1 second that this might be Satan's doing? Because I have you considered my servant Job? Yo ass, when I tapped you on the show, when I pressed you into service, that I offered you up to the enemy? But Job hacked it, and you want me to explain myself to you, and you haven't even talked to the criminal. So I might be inclined to entertain your inquisitions, but not till you go talk to the criminal. Meaning you got to go back to square one and get tempted all over again. And don't talk to me till you've been through the temptation, because my so-called son went out there in the desert and got tempted and offered everything, Jack. They offered him everything. And what did he say? He said, "Get behind me, Satan." Well, what's that mean? Well, he's kind of rubbing Satan's nose in it, because he knows, well, you can't follow me, Satan, and I damn sure can't follow you. And so, if one of us is going to be following the other one, you go follow me, Jack. And as we know, every knee shall bow, sir, and the time is limited. So this ain't the time yet. See? But you're going to have to fall in behind me, partner, because I ain't following in behind you. And Christians can't figure it out, or won't. Stupid or liar. Stupid or motherfucking liar. Thanks for watching. Bye.